Hello everyone, and welcome to the lesson in economics that covers the basic circular flow model. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify the parts of the circular flow model, and you should also be able to explain in your own words how the parts of that model interact. Now, just as a review from what you read in the lesson, models in economics are important because they're a representation of the real world. They're our reality. They let us make observations, they let us understand what's going on in the economy, and they let us make predictions about what will happen in the future. The circular flow model is important because it shows us the flow of goods, services, resources, and money in our economy. Okay? So what you should do through this lesson is you should pull up the assignment that is attached to the lesson, and as we go through the video, you should be filling out the parts of the circular flow model as we go through them. And then once you've labeled all parts of the circular flow model, you should be explaining in your own words how those parts interact. And I will go through that as we go through the parts of the model. So you might just want to, I don't know, jot some notes down beside on a separate paper just to help you explain what's going on when you get to the end of the video, or you can always pause and rewind and come back and review things to help you explain how the model works in your own words. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to note that we have our two important institutions here. We have firms and we have our households. Firms are businesses and households are the resource owners. Their households are basically you and me. We're the resource owners, okay? And then we also have our two markets. We have our resource market and we have our product market. And you saw that in the lesson, markets are any place where there's an exchange of goods, services, resources. So that, as an example, that can be anything like a King Soopers, Best Buy, online retailers like Amazon or Overstock.com, any of those are all markets where people can come together and exchange goods, services, and resources. Point, you might want to pause the video and then just write down these first four things: firms, households, and then the two markets, your product market at the bottom and your resource market at the top. Okay? Now we're going to go through and we're going to see how all of these things interact in the model and in our, of course, reality, because that's what models represent. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is in the resource market, how do businesses interact in the resource market? Well, businesses will go to the resource market and they will get resources: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. In a previous lesson, we learned that those were the factors of production. I'm going to abbreviate it here as FOP, factors of production. So at the resource market, businesses get resources: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And in exchange, they're going to send they're going to have to pay for those things. So they're going to incur some costs in the form of salaries, wages, rents. They need to pay for those resources that they're going to use. Okay, now moving on. Well, at the resource market, the resource market needs to get those resources from somewhere, and they get it from households. Households send those resources or bring them to the resource market. Again, market, it can be any place where there is exchange of goods, services, and resources. So households, people like you and me, we bring our resources to the resource market to send to businesses or to give them to businesses. Well, we don't give them, we sell them. And in exchange, the resource market turns those resources, takes those costs from businesses and turns them into money and income to send to households. So that can be anything from like wages, rents, interest, profits, anything. It's cash that they send to households in exchange for the resources that they provide: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Again, those factors of production. Okay, and then this brings us to our next portion that we're going to look at. So what happens when those firms or those businesses get all the resources from households and have paid for them? Remember that this is money up here because they have to pay, they incur a cost for those resources that they get, and that cost then becomes the money or income that households make in exchange for their resources, their land, their labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So what happens after the firms get those resources? Well, businesses, turn them into finished goods and services to send to the product market. And when they're at the product market, firms sell those products, those finished goods and services, and they make a revenue that comes back to them. So over here they have revenue, cash money, that they get for the products and services that they sell. Okay. And then at the product market, households come to the product market and they consume those goods and services that businesses have provided, firms have provided. And of course, nothing is free, so they incur consumption expenditures. In other words, they spend money for those goods and services that they receive. So they spend money for the goods and services that they receive, or the things that they purchase. So like when you go to the grocery store and you buy an apple, you're consuming that good, that apple, and you're spending money for it, right? Where did that apple come from? It came from a company who, maybe it's an orchard that produces apples, and at that orchard they pay people. So they'll pay people, incur costs for their labor to grow those apples. Here's my apple here. You like my little apple? And that labor, those people who are growing those apples, well, they come from the households. So you can kind of see a nice example with my little apple at a grocery store about how everything comes full circle. People grow the apples, they provide their land and their labor at the resource market. A business then pays people to grow those apples, and in exchange they get that apple. Then a business might send it to something like King Soopers. It's a finished good. That apple's a finished good. That apple is sold at the product market, so the business gets a revenue, and they sell it to households here. They sell it to households who have to spend money in order to eat the apple. Now you may have noticed that everything on the outside of this wheel is in green, and that is on purpose, because the outside wheel represents money, okay, the flow of cash in our economy. So you see this green, you think of money. The faster that this wheel turns, the better an economy will be. The faster that this goes, the better it will be. So I'm going to try and go really fast here. But if it slows down, well, the opposite will happen. If it slows down, then you will see an economy start to do badly. So the faster we get this wheel to go, the better it will be. And so that's it for the circular flow model. If you have any questions, please call me, text me, or email me. And again, you can always go back and make sure to pause the recording to identify the parts of the model and explain how they interact.